This past Sunday, I attended a conference run actually by Yeshivat Har Etzion by Gush, in which it was created as a leadership rabbinic conference. And one of the speakers at the conference was the president of the OU, Moshe Bain. Some of you know him. He asked a question. He was talking about religious growth, religious guidance among our community. And he asked what I thought was a really great question, something I've been thinking about since Sunday. And I think I might even write about it and send something to your parents about it in the context of a pre-Pesach message. He asked the following. He said, if you look in a bedroom of a 10-year-old child, an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, his point was under bar mitzvah, but old enough to be able to make decisions. He says, what do you find in the bedroom? What do you find on the walls? He says, do you find pictures of rabbis? Do you find Sfarim? Do you find objects of Torah? Or, if you look in the bedroom of a 10-year-old, do you find pictures of celebrities? Pictures of basketball players, of hockey players? And not to take away from that or say there's anything wrong with that, but his point was that if we want to promote religious growth, and we want to try to create and encourage religious meaning, what exists in one's bedroom, what we put in their homes, has an incredible impact on kids as they grow up. And it got me thinking. It hit a chord within me because it was a great question. It was a great point. I thought about my own kids. And I started thinking about what are on their walls and what's in their bedrooms. And then I started thinking about Rabbi Goldberg, actually. And it went immediately to that. And the reason is because by a show of hands, how many of you here made it to his house at some point during Shiva, or for a Tish, or on Purim, or for a Shabbaton, or a Shabbos meal? Show of hands. Raise your hands if you were in his house at some point. Okay? Pretty good. If you looked at his walls, okay, you saw only pictures of rabbis, only Sfarim. There was nothing that existed that wasn't steeped in Torah, and I think we understand that, and I think we know that. And I think in many ways you've all heard a lot from me in the context of thoughts post the Ptira of Rabbi Goldberg, both at the Levaya, and then we had a few events here in the school. But today we really begin by marking the Shloshim of something that hit us as a community very, very hard. And it came as a complete shock. I still, in many ways can't believe that it happened. I sat down for breakfast today. I sat next to Rabbi Sonnenberg, and usually Rabbi Goldberg would sit on my left-hand side. And he would always turn to me and would say, "Nu, tell me a vort, tell me a vort." And he wouldn't let me get up or move or do anything until I told him a vort. And it didn't happen today. So we're here today to commemorate and to continue a little bit the collective mourning that we all feel over the loss of Rabbi Goldberg. And to lead us today and really share thoughts, Divrei Hesped, we have a very special guest. We have an alumnus of Ar Chaim and someone who perhaps was one of the closest Talmidim of Rabbi Goldberg. Many of you know him more so because of the yichus of his father and his mother from Netivot. But Rabbi Avi Diamond, who runs a minyan in the Viewmount Shul and is an incredible lamdin, a Talmid Chacham, and a leader in our community, was also a very, very close Talmid of Rabbi Goldberg for many, many decades, and stayed very close with the family and has really taken on personal responsibility in the last few weeks to ensure that the family is cared for, to ensure that Rabbi Goldberg's wife is being taken care of as best as possible. Rabbi Diamond has been in touch with the children throughout, and he's really taken on the mantle of leadership for this family to help them to cope with the tragic loss of their patriarch, of their leader. And we asked Rabbi Avi Diamond to come here this morning and share some Divrei Hesped, share some thoughts with all of you, and really get us started with what we believe will be a special siyum of learning, in which at the conclusion of Rabbi Diamond's talk, we will begin our learning, which will ultimately conclude in a special siyum. So, Rabbi Diamond, thank you for joining us here.
Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Grauer, Shlita, Avimori, my father-in-law, Rabbanim, and the entire yeshiva. I am both saddened and humbled to be standing here this morning. Saddened because the realization that our dear Rebbe, Rabbi Moshe Goldberg Zatzal, is no longer with us and is now a reality. I am additionally humbled that as an alumni of Or Chaim, I was selected and asked to speak representing the thousands of Talmidim that Rabbi Goldberg had influenced. I was beyond fortunate to have had a very special relationship with Rabbi Goldberg that went far beyond my years in his shir here in Or Chaim. Alongside, together with my beloved parents, Rebbe was a guiding figure who molded me into the person who I am today. I was zeichet to learn with Rebbe Bechavrusa for night seder in the Masifta at his request. I was zeichet to spend time with Rebbe in his home, learning together in his basement. I was zeichet to have Rebbe guide me and help me find my wonderful wife. I was zeichet to have Rebbe come dance with me at my chasana, despite being only 3 months after his own mother was nifter. I will never forget the moment when Rebbe showed up during the first dance set, and my eyes lit up upon seeing his infectious smile. He maneuvered his way into the inner circle, ran over to me, and despite being an Avelis, whispered in my ear, "A father would never miss a son's chasana." I was zeichet to have Rebbe meet my 6 children, K'nai Nahar, and watch him give each one of them a bracha from the depth of his heart with such kavanah and love. I recognize that whatever is said here today will be inadequate in giving Rebbe the kavod that he deserves. It's with this in mind that I want to share with you a message that, if internalized, I believe will give honor to Rabbi Goldberg's remarkable legacy to the best of our abilities. The Gemara in Maseches Chagiga shares with us a story about 2 distinguished Talmidim, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. They journeyed to visit their illustrious Rebbe, Rabbi Yeshua, in a certain town. And upon their arrival, the Rebbe, Rabbi Yeshua, asked the Talmidim, "Ma chiddush haya b'beis hamedrash hayoyim?" Tell me, what was the chiddush, what was the novel teaching that was discussed today in the Beis Medrash? Surprised by his question, the 2 Talmidim replied with great humility and reverence, "Talmidecha anu, umimecha anu shaisim." We're your Talmidim. We drink from your waters. Why are you asking us for a chiddush when in fact our wisdom emanates from you? Dismissing the response, Rabbi Yeshua countered and replied, "Afal pichein efshar beis medrash b'li chiddush." Regardless of my prestige, it's impossible to have a beis medrash devoid of any chidushim and novel teachings. And the 2 students had no choice but to acquiesce. And they began to present the chiddush that they had learned that day. And upon hearing it, Rabbi Yeshua jumped up with great excitement and he said, "Margolias toiva haisa b'yedchem ubikashtem la'abda b'meni." Such precious gems and jewels you had in these chidushim, and you desired to withhold it from me? Rabbi Yeshua was elated with the chidushim that the students had shared with him. The Gemara continues and asks, why were these Talmidim so hesitant to tell and share this chiddush with the Rebbe? When Rabbi Yeshua asked them for the chiddush, they were initially apprehensive and dismissed his question by saying, "We're your Talmidim, it's not our place." Why didn't they just share with the Rebbe the chiddush that they had learned? The Gemara explains that they hesitated because of a Maisa Shahaya, a story that had already taken place prior. What's the story? Rabbi Yossi went to go visit his Rebbe. And when Rabbi Yossi showed up to visit his own Rebbe, the Rebbe turned to Rabbi Yossi, his Talmud, and said, "Rabbi Yossi, tell me a chiddush." And immediately Rabbi Yossi, without any hesitation, launched into his chiddush and without any reluctance shared it with his Rebbe. His Rebbe turned to him in anger and said, "Yossi, pshoit yadecha v'kabel einecha." Stretch out your hands and catch your eyes. for your eyes are about to fall out of your sockets. A terminology that Gemara uses for somebody becoming blind. And indeed, subsequently, Rabbi Yossi became blind temporarily. The question on this Gemara is obvious. What was the transgression within Rabbi Yossi's response to his Rebbe that warranted the punishment of becoming blind? After all, he was simply replying to his Rebbe's request to share with him a chiddush that he had learned that day. And even if we can uncover what Rabbi Yossi's mistake was, why was blindness the selected punishment to be attributed? So Rashi explains that the tragic mistake Rabbi Yossi made in sharing his chiddush was that he didn't accurately attribute the correct author to the chiddush. For this chiddush had already been around since the earlier days of the Anshe Knesses Hagadolah. It was an old chiddush. And Rabbi Yossi didn't accurately reference the proper author. And although to us this might seem like a minor infraction, there is midah keneged midah. The reciprocity isn't unjust. For since Rabbi Yossi failed to diligently apply himself to see if his chiddush had already been taught, it was a sign that he was trying to take credit for the chiddush himself. So since he failed to use his own eyes to determine the original source of this chiddush, he was thus punished, becoming blind, punishing his eyes. But the Maharsha asks an extremely strong kasha on Rashi. Rashi could have explained Rabbi Yossi's mistake in a much simpler way. Why not explain that Rabbi Yossi was punished because he didn't hesitate to reply with his chiddush, thus demonstrating a lack of humility in front of his Rebbe? For a Talmud must recognize that the koyach HaChiddush resides exclusively with the Rebbe. That's the Rebbe's job, to teach and to be mechadesh. It's the Talmud's job to listen and to learn. The failure of Rabbi Yossi to respond reluctantly, but instead quickly offering his own chiddush, constituted a breach of this required humility. So instead of explaining Rabbi Yossi's mistake as an incorrect attribution of authorship, why didn't Rashi offer this more compelling explanation as to Rabbi Yossi's mistake? So asks the Maharsha. To answer this question, I want to turn our attention to a very well-known Rashi at the beginning of Parshas Bahaloischa. The Psukim at the beginning of Parshas Bahaloischa inform us about the mitzvah that Aaron the Kohen is instructed to daily light the menorah in the Mishkan and then subsequently in the Beis HaMikdash. But the Torah uses a very peculiar terminology when it comes to lighting the menorah. Normally, when we use a language of lighting, it's hadlakas neiros. But the Torah uses the language of beha'aloischa es haneiros. Beha'aloischa comes from the word aliyah, to rise up, to elevate. So why did the Torah choose this word to express the lighting of the candle, of elevating the candle, as opposed to using the typical word, lighting the candle? So Rashi on this pasuk offers us two explanations. Firstly, when lighting a candle, the goal is to have the newly ignited candle burn on its own, without the need to constantly hold an existing flame there to support it. So therefore, the language of aliyah, to rise up, was used to express that the objective of this lighting is to enable the new flame to stand on its own, upright, and shine on its own strength. But Rashi then offers a second explanation. There was a small elevated platform in front of the menorah that the Kohen would ascend and stand on when he lit the menorah. So therefore, since he was elevating himself, the Torah chose the language of aliyah, to go up, representing where the Kohen was standing when he was lighting the menorah. One of the commentators, the Re'im, offers an extremely cryptic comment on this Rashi. And the Re'im says that these two comments of Rashi are equal. They're shkulim. What does it mean that these two comments are equal? Perhaps the Re'im is teaching us a yesod, a fundamental rule in the world of chinuch. We know that Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. A person's neshama is represented by a candle. And this Rashi is teaching us the secret to being a successful Rebbe. The objective, the tafkid of a Rebbe, is to be mechanech his talmidim and instill within him yiras shamayim, ahavas Torah, and midas tovos. To pave a path for them to follow, enabling them to perform mitzvahs with love and dedication. But the reality is that a Rebbe will not always be standing side by side with his Talmud. The Rebbe won't always be present when his Talmidim face their own challenges during their lifetimes. So the tafkid, the goal of the Rebbe, is to instill within the Talmud, a sense of purpose, confidence, and the ability to believe in themselves, that they could be oymid me'aleha, that they can stand on their own, to recognize their own unique koiches and nefesh and skill set that HaKadosh Baruch Hu invested within them. This is the first pshat in Rashi. The goal is to take the flame which represents the neshama and equip it to stand on its own, lashon aliyah. However, Talmidim will only follow the guidance of their Rebbe if the Rebbe practices what he preaches. The Rebbe must ensure to elevate himself, to stand on a platform like Rashi explains in the second pshat, displaying his own commitment to Torah and to mitzvahs. He needs to practice what he preaches. Only if the Talmidim have this true guiding example will they begin to believe the message that the Rebbe is teaching. And this perhaps is the explanation of the Re'im, how the two comments of Rashi are equal. They go hand in hand. To be a successful Rebbe, one must ignite the neshamas of one's Talmidim to eventually stand on their own and cultivate their own koiches. But it must be coupled with the Rebbe walking the walk and living up to those very standards with truth and sincerity. He must be a true shining example for his Talmidim to follow, living with an elevated purpose. With this message in mind, let's come back to our Gemara, Maseches Chagiga. Upon the conclusion of Rabbi Goldberg's Shiva, his children, together with his Rebbetzin, requested that I stay behind. And after everybody left, they brought me into a room and they showed me binders upon binders of Rabbi Goldberg's handwritten Chidushei Torah. 50, 75, maybe even more binders. They were his own Chidushim on Shas, on Parsha, on Tanakh, on Yom Tovim. Binders upon binders that took hours, months, years for him to work on. They handed me a couple of binders and they said, this is for you and for your brother. Rebbe would want you to have them. I was beyond moved. I didn't know how to respond. But they were insistent and they handed it to me. Took it home, and when looking through the binder, I found a piece of Torah that Rebbe wrote over 35 years ago that was titled Talmud V'Rav. And in this section, Rabbi Goldberg references this exact maharsha on this Gemara and offers his own answer. The question was, why did Rashi have to come up with a new reason what the mistake was when Rabbi Yossi offered the Chiddush, that he didn't attribute it to the correct author? Why not say simply, he was punished because he immediately answered his Rebbe and he didn't show the reverence? Why not explain it that way? So I felt what better way to bring kavod to Rabbi Goldberg today than to read to you his very own words in his Ksav Yad. Ula'anias daiti, according to my humble opinion, said Rabbi Goldberg, Tikvar bir bazeh hagoyin Reb Chaim Shmulevitz shlita. This is when Reb Chaim Shmulevitz was still alive. Listen to these words. She'atalmid she'oimer rak ma she'shama mirabbai. A student who only repeats whatever his Rebbe tells him, who puppet ve'enoi Talmud. That's not a Talmud, that's a puppet. Sheharav tzarich laharais derech halimud. The job of a Rebbe is to show a Talmud how to learn. Kedei shehatalmid atzmo yachal loymar chidushei Torah. So the student can learn how to say his own chidushim. Zehu be'emes kavod harav. This is the ultimate kavod for a Rav to have. The ultimate kavod that a Rebbe can experience is to witness his Talmidim being mechadish his own chidushim and standing on their own. Rashi understood that the purpose of a Talmud is not only to be a mouthpiece for a Rebbe, but rather to be a source of Torah and chidushim just like his Rebbe was. This is why Rashi refused to explain Rabbi Yossi's mistake was a breach of humility and a slight to his Rebbe's kavod by offering his answer right away. On the contrary, it was the very fulfillment of kavod harav. The words I'm about to say are difficult to hear, but they are reality. There will never be another Rabbi Goldberg. His unparalleled Ahavas HaTorah, his irreplaceable enthusiasm for learning, his palpable love for life, and his immeasurable love for each and every one of his Talmidim are gone forever. There will never be another Rabbi Goldberg. But if we really want to truly keep his legacy in our lives, there is one thing that we can do. We must believe in ourselves the same way that Rebbe believed in each and every one of us. We can never become who he was, but that's not what Rebbe desired. That was never his goal. He dedicated his entire life to show us the beauty of Torah and mitzvahs, to help each of us develop our own unique connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and become the best B'nai Torah that we can be. If we want to honor his great legacy, we must show him that because of his efforts, we now can be Oymen Me'aleh. We now can stand on our own. We now can grow in Torah and mitzvahs, steigen, learning Basmada. Open up a Gemara, like you said, and learn Gemara, Rashi, Taisus, Rishonim and Achrayim Be'iyun. We know now what it means to say Chidushim and love every Jew. If we follow in his ways and become the best versions of ourselves, that will bring the ultimate kavod and glory to his illustrious legacy. And I want to conclude with a story. I believe everyone who knew Rabbi Goldberg always recognized his love for learning, his love for Torah. But I think what flew under the radar, we all didn't appreciate, was the tzidkus that he lived by. I want to share with you a story that I heard about the Vishnitzer Rebbe. And when I heard this story, there was one person who popped into my mind the story reminded me of. It was Rabbi Moshe Goldberg. One evening in the Bnei Brak, the Vishnitzer Rebbe had a knock on the door, and a fellow came to him to ask him for a bracha. The man sat down and explained to the Rebbe that tomorrow night, he's going to be making a chasna for his eldest daughter, but he's going to be walking his daughter down to the chuppah by himself without his wife. Why? Because his young wife was just recently nifter. He came to ask the Vishnitzer Rebbe for a bracha, for koyach, for strength, to get through the simcha. The Rebbe was silent, and he turned to the man and he said, "Come back to me tomorrow night after the chasna." The man was astonished. And the man said, "But Rebbe, I'm here right now. Tomorrow night, it could be 3 o'clock in the morning by the time I get my kids in bed and home. Why can't you give me a bracha now?" The Rebbe said, "I'll be waiting for you." The next night, after the chasna, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. The man showed up. He was nervous. He gently knocked on the door. And the Rebbe was waiting. The Rebbe told the man to sit down. And this is what the Rebbe said. "Tell me, at the chassan's tish, which hot dish was the most popular?" And the man answered. The Rebbe continued. "The new shoes that you bought for your children for the chasana, were they comfortable during the dancing, or were they too stiff and rigid because they weren't worked in enough? What was the preferred main course, the chicken or the beef? Was the sorbet served on time for dessert?" And these questions went on for about an hour until the Rebbe wished the man a mazel tov and told him a good night. The door shut and the Gabbai turned to the Rebbe with astonishment and said, "This is what you needed to schlep this man here after his chasana at 3 o'clock in the morning? This is what you needed to discuss?" Listen to the answer the Rebbe provided him. When a couple comes home after making a simcha, they sit down at the table and they turn to each other and they begin discussing every detail, every nuance, every element of the simcha. Exclaimed the Rebbe, "With whom was this man going to sit down and discuss what was the most popular dish at the chassan's tish? With whom was this man going to sit down and discuss if the children's shoes were comfortable? With whom was this man going to sit down and discuss if the sorbet was served on time at the dessert?" Do you know why I called him over? To show him how much I care about him. That I'm noise ba'oil in chaveri. Rabbi Moshe Goldberg, our Rebbe, embodied this midah to perfection. He cared so much about everyone else around him. He would call a very dear friend of mine in our community twice daily to check up on him to see how he was feeling for the last 15 years. He would ensure that every other week he would give an envelope of tzedakah from his own money to support a widow and her family. The non-Jewish workers in Grzinski's bakery cried when they heard Rabbi Goldberg was nifter, because he was the only customer to always come in and ensure he wasn't distracted on his cell phone, so he could ask each and every one of them how they and their families were doing. Every Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov, he had a list of people he would call widows, orphans, sick people, old friends and acquaintances. He called them all simply to give them a little bit of chizuk and show them how much he cared. His heart was filled with ahava and sincerity for others. So Rebbe, as you are now undoubtedly learning in Shamayim together with the Rashba, with Rabbi Kiva Eger, with Ksais, and with Rabbi Shmuel, us Talmidim down here are doing the exact same thing. And all thanks to you. I urge every fellow Talmid, past and present, figure out a way how you can be Oymen Me'aleh. How can you strengthen your commitment to Torah, mitzvahs, and Masim Tovim in a concrete and measurable way? Rebbe, you lived a life as a guiding example with an elevated purpose. And now, as you are elevated to the highest of heights, stationed next to the Kisei HaKavod, you left us all with the tools and confidence to shine and flourish in our own lives. Now it is our time to be Oymen Me'aleh, to stand on our own and become the best B'nai Torah that we can be. To be Mechadish our own Torah and cultivate our own unique connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the greatest kavod we can show you. In Mirza Hashem, may all of our collective merits be a direct schus for your righteous neshama. And as we have entered Chodesh Nisan, the month of Geula, we eagerly yearn for the ultimate Geula, when we can sit together with you again and exclaim with pride, Talmidecha anu umeimecha anu shoisim. We are your students, and we drink from your waters. Yehei Zichrei Baruch.
Thank you, Rabbi Diamond. What incredible and tremendous words. Before we begin our learning in the next part of the program, I want to give you a sense of some of the activities that we as a yeshiva are going to embark upon as a way of perpetuating Rabbi Goldberg's memory. Everyone here knows that over the course of the last few years, we've had the occasion of having a number of Hachnasat Sifrei Torah and the celebratory events that have taken place around them. Up in the Sephardic Beit Knesset, the Masuda family most recently this year, and before them the Biton family have given us 2 new Sifrei Torah that we enjoy, we learn from, we read from on a weekly basis. And this coming Thursday night, we're going to have the opportunity of another Hafnasat Sefer Torah, where the Greenberg family is going to be giving a Sefer Torah here to our Beit Midrash. But what we've never done as a yeshiva is, from the beginning to end, write a Sefer Torah dedicated specifically to a Rebbe, to a person who impacted all of us. And when we were thinking about how can we remember Rabbi Goldberg and what can we do to perpetuate his memory, the ideas of the fact that he was a walking Sefer Torah throughout the halls of this Beit Midrash and this yeshiva kept permeating. And a number of individuals came forward and said, we should write a Sefer Torah in Rabbi Goldberg's memory. And as such, the major campaign that we're going to be working on, which is going to have a number of layers to it, is going to be the writing of a Sefer Torah in memory of Rabbi Goldberg. A special thank you to the Rudman and Silver families who are going to be sponsoring the Sefer Torah, but it's something that all of us will be participating in. And there will be a number of layers. First and foremost, many of you know that in many ways Rabbi Goldberg was the driving force behind the Masmidim program here at Or Chaim. Rabbi Goldberg, as you know, he used to come and he learned with us, he taught until lunchtime, and then he went to the Mesivta and he continued the afternoon there and he spent the rest of the day there. All of a sudden we came up with the idea that we should have a Masmidim program. And all the Rebbeim would participate and everyone would be involved. And I sat down with Rabbi Goldberg and I said to Rabbi Goldberg, what do you think? Do you think you can come back? Do you think you can participate? Do you think you can be here with us? So he asked me the schedule, he asked me some questions, and he said, yes, I'm going to make it happen. And anyone who's been in the Masmidim program for the last 2 years knows that I don't think a single week went by where Rabbi Goldberg missed his chavrusa, his chabura, his shiurim. And he absolutely loved it. He used to come over to me and say, Rabbi Grauer, it's incredible, the Masmidim program, it's grown, it's growing. Look at the number of Talmidim, look at the number of people who are learning. And he only wanted to see it grow. So what we decided is, as a way of perpetuating his memory, we are going to be renaming the Masmidim program the Rabbi Moshe Goldberg Masmidim program at Or Chaim. And any time that we run the learning and all of the expenses associated with it, the food and other things, will all be raised in memory of Rabbi Goldberg so that he will perpetuate in this Beit Midrash, and the Masmidim program, which we hope will continue to grow, will be named in his memory. And in an effort to raise funds for this program, we plan to do a Sefer Torah campaign around it. But in addition to the Sefer Torah campaign, which we're going to be going public with later today, we also are going to be going public with a Siyum HaShas, in which the goal is that every single one of you, and alumni, and parents, and community members, and people who are connected to the family will sign up for pages, for dapim, for amudim in Shas. They'll sign up for a Siyum Tanakh, which we're going to be doing as well. A Siyum Shas and a Siyum Tanakh. That between now and next year, Rosh Chodesh Adar, we will be learning in memory of Rabbi Goldberg. We're starting today with Maseches Tanis. This is the beginning. The entire yeshiva is starting today, and the reason we're starting this today is because 4 weeks ago, on a Tuesday, when Rabbi Goldberg unfortunately suffered a heart attack, and I wasn't involved, Eitan Zivan and a number of the Rabbeim, Rabbi Thwaite and others, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some of the Rabbeim who were involved in organizing it, said we have to organize something, we have to learn. And within 2 hours, it was a huge group. I went, I was there, I saw. But within 2 hours, it was a huge group of students from the yeshiva and Rabbeim and parents who were sitting in the Beis Medrash of the Bayit, and they were learning a Masechet, finishing that Masechet within 1 hour for a Refuah Shlema for Rabbi Goldberg. And the Refuah Shlema didn't happen. Unfortunately, our tefillah were not answered. But at the same time, that was the last learning that we did for Refuah Shlema for Rabbi Goldberg, and it was an incredible Kiddush Hashem about how that was put together. And we felt we need to continue along the same lines. And we need to find a way to continue what was started right here, right now. So we're going to start right now, where every single one of you, and we're going to bring in some more chairs and some more tables for people who are in the back, but every single one of you has a different daf of Tanis. But nobody has the same dafim. So if anyone doesn't learn their daf, it won't be a real siyum. And if you want a different chavrusa, the Rabbeim are all here, we're all going to be walking around, we're all going to be learning with you. We're going to be learning together that daf, so that in a few minutes, let me just finish up. In a few minutes, we'll be able to make a siyum on Tanis, and we as a yeshiva will finish the first Masechet in the ultimate Siyum HaShas that we will do Rosh Chodesh Adar next year after we learn the entire Shas and the entire Tanakh in memory of Rabbi Goldberg. And you will also all have an opportunity to have a chelek, to purchase a chelek in that, where for only a few dollars, you can buy a letter of the Sefer Torah as well. And we're going to show you how to do that with your parents and with your families as well, so that everybody can participate. And we're actually planning for any of you who have family in Israel, we're going to do something very unique, which is usually not done. Usually when you write a Sefer Torah, you get together as a yeshiva and you end the Sefer Torah together. You write the last few letters. But immediately after Pesach, we're actually going to start the Sefer Torah together as well, where alumni and family and people who are in Israel are going to gather and they're going to start Bereshit Bara Elokim, writing the first few letters of this Sefer Torah as well. So we're going to start together as a community, and then we're going to end together in a year as a community. And it's something that we hope will in some small measure bring some tiny level of comfort to the family. You should know that when we told the siblings, the children, the Rebbitzin of Rabbi Goldberg, Chaim Rotman was with me, he can attest to it, when we told them that we were writing a Sefer Torah in Rabbi Goldberg's memory, they couldn't believe it. They were blown away. They said right away, there's no greater way to remember someone than writing a Sefer Torah in their memory. Right away. They were blown away. They were so excited. And then when we told them that we're going to continue and learn a Siyum HaShas, a Siyum Tanakh, they thought it was so incredibly special. And every single one of us, and many, many, many more, will be participating and joining in this together. So we're going to get ready. We're going to start the learning now. We're going to be here to guide and to help and to support the learning. And in Mirza Hashem, this should be an Ilui for the Neshama of Rabbi Moshe Goldberg. Goldberg's close Talmidim to share a few words with us. And it goes without saying, but please, please, give them your undivided attention, as it's not easy for them to stand up and share words and thoughts. We'll start with Avichai. Avichai Goldberg.
For the past 4 years, I've had the privilege of learning with Rabbi Goldberg twice a week, every week, and at any school break where we got the chance to learn. I learned with him every Shabbat and Sunday. He always was ready, waiting with his Gemara and a smile on his face. I completed almost 4 Masechta with him, personally learning one-on-one with him as my Rabbi, and I loved every moment of it. He was there to greet me when I first came to Or Chaim, and we were 3 years after we first started learning together. He helped me with my bar mitzvah speech. He dropped me home from school most days, and he was really always there for me. He was really always there for all of us, because he always wanted to be a part of things. He was intensely curious, with a never-ending thirst of knowledge. He always had a question. He always wanted to know. He used to ask me how to open emails, and he'd sit there going over it until he was 100% sure that he could do it by himself. Then it was sending text messages, and 1 week later another thing, and another, and another. The quest for learning, curiosity, and thirst for knowledge, he instilled in me, and he instilled in all of his students. Rabbi Goldberg was a unique character. He taught here at Or Chaim, at the Masifta, born in Chicago, learned in Cleveland, moved to Toronto, led a minyan at Viewmount, and at Saranac. He truly influenced countless lives. If you all notice, all these places are drastically different. Toronto is not like Chicago or Cleveland. The Masifta is not like Or Chaim, or Saranac, or Viewmount. And I could keep going. This wasn't for no reason. But in all this difference, regular people would act differently in each situation. We can act one way with our friends, one way with our families, one way with our work. But there was only one Rabbi Goldberg. And I had the privilege to learn with Rabbi Goldberg in many of these situations. In his home, he acted the same way as he did with his friends and family in Or Chaim, and the same at the Masifta. He used to sit outside learning on the porch of his home with his Gemara open and talk to people as they walked by. Every time he greeted someone, they would always greet him back with a smile, and he would always be happy to talk. He learned all of their names. He made them feel special. Because Rabbi Goldberg was not an ordinary person. He found a way to be the exact same loving and caring and amazing human being to ensure that every person, no matter who they were, where they came from, looked up to him with an instant connection. He never had a bad word to say about anyone or anything. I still remember when I first began learning with him. He would really show me what to do and care about me. He would pay attention to how I was feeling and how I thought and what I wanted and what I needed. When we learned in school breaks, he always brought food and soda, and he always would bring one extra can because maybe someone else would come and show up. And one day, someone did, and then another. But he would still bring one extra one, just in case another person would show up. And the look on his face when someone came for him, just for him to learn, was unforgettable. Everyone who knew him cared about him deeply. And to be able to be loved and respected by so many different people in so many different worlds, and to have so many people, and to care about that many people, really truly care about each and every one of them, is unremarkable. Because Rabbi Goldberg was a remarkable human being that I owe a lot to. And I know that the impact he had will last for generations to come. Thank you.
The first time I ever really noticed Rabbi Goldberg at school was during a Friday morning tish at the beginning of grade 10. At the time, I didn't really understand the levels of administration of the school. Rabbi Goldberg was sitting at the end of a very long table alongside Rabbi Grauer and other faculty members. I remember feeling a sense of awe, as if I recognized his holiness. Little did I know that one day I would be among the final students to come to know his love for Torah, and how being in his presence would change my look on Torah and life forever. I first joined Rabbi Goldberg's class at the start of grade 11. In previous years, when I was in Gemara class, I would always set up my computer, ready for constant distraction and outside stimulation. So when I was put in his class, without a phone, computer, or any outside distraction, I panicked. After the first class, I said to my friend, "That's it, I'm dropping out of this." I couldn't even handle one class. How was I supposed to handle an entire year? But over the next week, I became more and more reluctant to leave. For the people who didn't know Rabbi Goldberg personally, he treated every person in his own special way. He had a unique way about him, calling each of his students a good boy at random times. This was one way he made a connection. He would say things that made us laugh, think, or when he would notice tension, he would ask us, "Good mood? Good mood?" while directing his attention to each of us. Rabbi Goldberg always knew how to transition our attention to Gemara by telling us a quick story or something he randomly experienced. So after 1 week of his class, I knew there was no way I could leave such a special man. I have had the privilege of being his student for the past few years. One of the most important lessons he taught me is that being a Jew requires the continual development of the heart, mind, and soul. One of the Gemaras he taught that has really stuck with me was how not to embarrass others. It says in Brachot, "It is better for a man that he should cast himself into a fiery furnace, rather than he should put his fellow to shame in public." If Rabbi Goldberg ever raised his voice in class to reprimand us for one reason or another, I also noticed how he would effectively make the comment, "I didn't mean to yell, but I meant every word." And when class was over, he would apologize for getting upset. What amidah! How could you not respect a man that carried such modesty and happiness? All he wanted was for us to be happy and learn as students. I can't help but realize that 2 weeks before he passed, I was in his class and we all laughed at one of his usual phrases. I don't know why, but I felt compelled to listen and write down all of the phrases that I heard. For those who knew Rabbi Goldberg, this is for you. "Pick yourself up, I'll look at you. Believe me, get out the sheet from yesterday. We're moving, I'll wait. Famous Gemara, talk to the walls. It's not right. Major Bechina. Cell phone, all new from today. Just the name invokes fear. Clear as a bell. We'll honor you. Where's the place? Every word." I was proud to call him my Rebbe. I will close with the words of our Rabbi, Rabbi Moshe Goldberg, Zichrono Livracha. Remember that you always had a Rebbe who never forced Torah on you. He only encouraged it. May we continue to learn this Mary. Thank you.
Reshut all the rabbis. Rabbi Moshe Tzvi Goldberg was an incredible man. There is no end to the number of adjectives I could ascribe to him, or to the number of roles that he filled, but I'll try to list a few. Rabbi, Torah giant, teacher, father, brother, son, friend. I can only speak to what I know, and I know this incredible man best as Rav Goldberg, my Gemara Rebbe. Before being placed in his shiur this past September, I had known Rav Goldberg for 3 years already, but only in passing. He was the warm, constant presence in the Beit Midrash, the leader of the aspiring Gemara Chabura Matmidim group that I unfortunately did not participate in, the Rav of my minyan that always told the Chazan to slow down a little and gave fascinating Divrei Torah every Friday. But this year, I finally got the opportunity to be in his shiur, to receive Torah from him every day. And for 6 wonderful months, that was the case. But now he's not with us anymore, and we need to cast our gaze backwards and to reflect on what Rav Goldberg left. Again, I can only speak to what I know, so I'll begin by saying that I'm very involved in my local chapter of B'nai Akiva. Over the course of the last 4 years, I have, in some way or another, been involved in B'nai Akiva programs, be it summer camp, Shabbatonim, or SNF. And throughout the years, there's one concept that has been repeated both to me and by me, time and again, mainly when teaching teenagers to become madrichim, to become people who have responsibilities and who need to look after children. This concept is that of dugma ishit. Translated directly as role model, these two words have been drilled into my mind, touted as the ideal for anyone and everyone who wants to be a good counselor, a good madrich, or a good friend. Looking back, reflecting on Rav Goldberg and the impact he had on myself, my school, and this whole community, I can't think of a better way to describe him than as the epitome of this concept of dugma ishit. There was something ethereal about the way Rav Goldberg approached life. It seemed like every decision he made was a simple one, every challenge he faced was no big deal. Rav Goldberg showed the world that it is so easy to dedicate your lives to Torah. to choose davening with a minyan 3 times a day, even when you're tired and the weather is awful and you have a million other excuses not to. Rav Goldberg showed the world that being a kind, caring person is the only logical way to live your life. That accepting others as they are, celebrating the victories and not the downfalls, never judging or forcing change, these can and should be the default for how we act every day. Rav Goldberg showed the world that it is not only possible but joyous to write multiple Sfarim, be renowned in countless countries as an Eved Hashem, to be chavrutas with the greatest of the greats, and to still be humble enough to be a high school Rebbe for over 20 years, to daven with teenagers every day, and to give shiurim that he knew weren't always given the respect they deserve. Rav Goldberg didn't just show the world what was possible. He dedicated the latter part of his life to showing, teaching, and guiding young, impressionable students in what is simply the proper way to live your life. On his Shloshim, we are here today to reflect and celebrate Rav Goldberg's life and to mourn his passing. We have all had time to grieve separately, each person in the way that is best for them. My reflection has led me to realize just how much of a role model Rav Goldberg was and how much he affected me and everyone I know just by living his life to the absolute fullest. May we all be zocheh to recognize Rav Goldberg's lasting influence in this world, internalize it, grow because of it, and put it back out into the world as he would see fit. Thank you.
When we send out the email about the Siyum Hashas, the Siyum Tanakh, in memory of Rabbi Goldberg, and in a way to keep his memory alive and motivate our learning, sign up for a parak of Tanakh, sign up for some dapin, sign up for a Masechet, ask your parents, your cousins, your relatives to sign up, send it around, spread it around. Let's have more learning emanate over the next year in memory of Rabbi Goldberg than we've ever done, and let's try to make this truly special. Thank you to all the people who participated, to everyone who spoke, Yoni, everyone, and in Mirza Hashem, may this be a small ilui for the neshama of Rabbi Goldberg.